Good evening, everyone. I'm Lynn Varecchia from the Office of Admission at College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm delighted to welcome all of our viewers from around the globe to the third installation of our Fall Open House webinar series. In our first two webinars, we covered the topics of what is the Montserrat first year experience and how do students declare a major, with insight from administrators and more importantly from our students. If you missed those sessions, I encourage you to check out the archived videos on our website. A little bit of trivia for you today. Today just so happens to be National Exoscale Day, a day celebrating the scientists and researchers who make breakthrough discoveries. So what great timing for tonight's topic of experiential learning, including internships, research, study abroad programs, and more. We will begin with a brief overview of experiential learning, followed by personal anecdotes from Holy Cross students. Tonight, I am joined by Professor Lauren Cass from the Political Science and Environmental Studies departments. He also serves as Dean of Experiential Learning and Student Success at Holy Cross. I'm also joined by a member of the Holy Cross class of 2022, Michaela Ferris, who attended Natick High School in Massachusetts. Also with us are four members of our senior class of 2021, Caitlin Marple, Franklin High School in Massachusetts, Lauren Dentinger, Shaker High School in New York, Willem McGee, Radnor High School in Pennsylvania, and Jordana Erzik, Wilbraham and Munson Academy, Massachusetts. I strongly encourage you to submit questions in the Q&A box, and we will answer them as we go along. You'll also see several poll questions pop up on your screen tonight, and our first one is being posted now. Finally, I'll mention that closed captioning is available tonight. You can activate it by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom window. First, Dean Cass, could you give us a brief description to internships, research, and experiential learning at Holy Cross?
Thanks, Lynn. Certainly. Let me just share my screen with you real quick here, and then we can get started. So experiential learning at Holy Cross encompasses a wide range of things. One of the things that we like to emphasize is that we are a liberal arts institution. Fundamentally, that's who we are. We believe strongly in what happens in the classroom and the faculty relationships between students and their faculty, their mentors. But we also believe very strongly that early in your process at Holy Cross, you need to engage in some of these high impact experiences outside of the classroom. And so we like to focus in on internships, research, study abroad, our trial teams, lots of different opportunities to engage with the world around us, with your colleagues in the classroom, but also with faculty, with people in the community, and people around the world. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview. I'm going to be very short because I want to be able to take your questions, and then I'll turn it over to the students because they've actually experienced all these things and they have a much better story to tell than I do anyway. You'll see the first slide up here just shows some of the internship programs and research programs that we run at Holy Cross. Our flagship really are the summer internships and summer research program. And many of our students who are here have actually participated in these, and I'll show you a couple slides about those students in a second. In terms of internships, we also have a New York semester, full semester in New York, a Washington semester, academic internships that you can do while at Holy Cross. One of your courses can be an internship in the community. We also have what we call micro projects through career development, where we have alumni often give projects that they'd like students to work on, and we can assign those over a break, or part of the semester. And then we have alumni shadowing programs and other opportunities to engage with our alumni to learn about internship opportunities, work opportunities, et cetera. In addition, on the research side, in addition to our summer research program, all of our faculty, in the sciences in particular, pull students into the labs with them. So we have non-credit faculty lab work, particularly early on in your time at Holy Cross. Later on, we have faculty lab for credit, where you're doing research with a faculty member for credit, oftentimes publishing works with your faculty member. We also have a manuscripts club through the classics department that's actually quite world-renowned in terms of the work that they do. Research associates, where we pair students to be research assistants for faculty. We have Ignite funds, where you can propose a project, something you would like to do research on, and you can be funded to do it on your own. And then we also have a student investment fund through the Chioka Center that allows you to do research into stocks and that sort of thing. So we have a range of things, and I didn't even put up everything. We also have mock trial, Moot Court, mediation. We have lots of different types of programs that you can engage with during your time at Holy Cross. In addition, just give you a couple quick statistics, sorry. In summer 2020, this past summer, we distributed $445,520 to 154 different students to complete 146 unpaid internships. So again, one of the things that we have, the Crusader Internship Fund, if you were able to secure an unpaid internship, a lot of students can't afford to take the time off for the summer to engage in that internship. We can actually provide a stipend to help you be able to take on those opportunities. In addition, 78% of the graduating class of 2019 completed an internship while they were at Holy Cross. And again, the other 22%, many of them did research and other things which during their summers that maybe have prevented them from doing an internship. But again, the vast majority of our students do internships while at Holy Cross. In summer 2020, we had 65 students participated in remote research projects with faculty. That's smaller than usual, largely because of COVID and the inability to have students on campus. But in summer 2019, we had 104 different students participating on campus with faculty doing research projects over the summer. So again, between internships and research opportunities, your summers in particular can be very full during your time at Holy Cross. Just to give you a sense of what some of these look like, I pulled a couple of examples from students that were in our summer 2020 research symposium and internship expo. This is actually on the website. Many of our students who did research and did summer internships put together posters to sort of provide insight into what they did during the summer. So I pulled a couple of those out just to give you an idea of what's out there. On the research side, this is an example from Brett George, and actually there's 3 different students involved in this one that also worked with the physics department on exoplanetary microlensing. Again, it was a remote research project, but they were able to process a lot of the data. You get a sense of the data that's here. This was done with a Holy Cross physics faculty member. In addition, evolution and transmission in manuscripts of the Iliad. This is again another group of students who work very closely with a professor in the biology department and a professor in the classics department as a joint program looking at ancient manuscripts and how to apply modern technologies to understanding them. Really quite a fascinating project. And again, that was from this summer. In addition, 2 of our students on the panel tonight did internships this past summer. Lauren Dettinger did an internship with the CDC, an amazing opportunity there. I'm sure she'll have a lot to say about that. And Willem McGee interned with Egan, Flanagan, and Cohen. He also, I believe, did the Washington semester and has been involved in various other things as well. So just to give you an idea of the types of things that you can do while you're at Holy Cross, I hope what you take away from this is the expectation is that if you come to Holy Cross, you will participate in internships. You will have opportunities to do research. You'll have opportunities to take what you do in the classroom and go out into the world and apply it, where you can get a sense of what it means for you. What we hope we can find is that once you start to identify what your academic passion is, what it is you truly love, we want very early on to help pair you then with what you might want to do with that passion when you leave Holy Cross. What are the opportunities that you can apply the skills and the knowledge that you're developing? And I'm sure a lot of our students can speak to some of these issues as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Lynn, and I'm happy to answer questions along the way, but I'll keep it short right now and then answer whatever questions you have. Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate that. So there's a question from an attendee about mock trial. And so Willem, maybe you can address this as a question about how is mock trial considered an internship? I thought it would be a club. So what qualifies mock trial as experiential learning?
Sure, and Caitlin can also speak to this. She's got more experience on mock trial than I do as a member of Moot Court, but all of the trial teams here at Holy Cross play a really important role in experiential learning as a component of professional development. So we in the trial teams have the ability to engage in the similar experiences that students in law school or attorneys in the legal field might be able to go about in their daily lives. And it both teaches us about what that work looks like and helps us discern whether or not that's something we want to do for the rest of our lives. And that's the same way for research and for internships. The trial teams, which we do as a co-curricular on top of our coursework, shows us that kind of work and also builds an alumni network in itself around that exercise. And I'm sure Caitlin would have something to add there too.
Sure, thank you. That was a really good answer, Willem. I don't have too much to add to that. I would just say that, like Willem said, it's a really, really good experience to get experience in the courtroom, no matter what you're interested in. So Moot Court is based on appellate law, mock trial is criminal and civil law. So it is a club, but it's a really big commitment, and you got a lot of learning experience from that. And that a lot of times when we go to tournaments, I know for the trial teams I'm involved in, we always have judges who are giving feedback and saying, you know, you guys have about as much experience as kids in law school, or you have the skills kind of that I see in practicing attorneys every day. So it's a good opportunity to kind of build on those skills really early, especially during your undergrad experience.
Thank you both. So Lauren, I heard the words internship with the CDC, and I think that's something that we're all eager to hear more about right now.
Yeah, so I was lucky to have the opportunity this summer, and I'm actually continuing with it this fall through the academic internship program to be a remote intern with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, Georgia. And so it's been a really awesome experience. I'm actually working with a Holy Cross alum. So my supervisor attended Holy Cross. And it has been a really exciting way to start to understand the world of public health and to get to see what it's like to be an epidemiologist that works for the CDC. And so I got the opportunity over the summer to participate in my internship remotely, and I did receive the Crusader internship funding. So though my internship was unpaid, I did receive a stipend, which was really helpful. And then my internship gave me the opportunity to continue through the fall. So I'm currently taking the internship for credit. And so I work at my internship about 8 to 10 hours a week, while during the summer it was closer to full time. And then I also have a weekly seminar on nonprofits and government agencies. So that's a really great way to connect with other students that are doing similar internships and get to really reflect on my experience doing my internship.
Thank you so much. Kayla, I'd love to hear you talk about your experience with advising at Holy Cross, particularly related to help in discernment and locating internship opportunities.
Yeah, of course. I've had a lot of personal experience with that recently. Since I am a junior, I plan to do a research, do an internship this coming summer, particularly because I am doing a business minor, business ethics and society minor, which will require an internship for my senior capstone. And so during my experience with the Career Development Center, I've had help writing cover letters, since this is the first time I've ever had to write a cover letter, as well as pointing me in directions of business that will connect with my major, which is the psychology major. And so that would be things like marketing, HR, it's communications and things like that. And so one of the internships I'm looking at requires an interview as well as a cover letter. And so that would, since that's my first time doing it, I've been communicating with the Career Development Center a lot, just on like the proper etiquette of an of a proper interview and how to write a cover letter that is dedicated towards that specific business, which is something that I didn't have experience with prior. So it's been really helpful in just having that connection, even though I'm not necessarily at Holy Cross now.
Great, thanks so much. Jordana, I want to ask you, different from internships in research, but still equally valuable in my mind in terms of experiential learning, is the opportunity to study abroad. So I'd love to hear a bit about your experience with your junior year abroad.
Sure. So I spent my junior year abroad at the University of Oxford in England, and I actually studied medieval French literature. So it was a little interesting choice, but it was absolutely incredible. The system there works on the tutorial system. So it's just you and your tutor, and you meet once a week, and there's also seminars and lectures as well. But what was super great about being at Oxford was that I was able to do a lot of research on my senior thesis, because they have books on literally everything in the world, and you're working with historians who are at the forefront of that research.
Great, and Lauren, you had a different kind of study abroad experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I had the awesome opportunity last fall to study abroad with the School for Field Studies in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And so the School for Field Studies is an awesome organization that gives opportunities for students all over the United States to do hands-on field research abroad. So they have centers all over the world, in Australia and Tanzania and Panama, and I happened to choose Turks and Caicos. And so I spent my first 2 months there taking classes and learning a little bit more about the ecology and about the research process. And then in my last month, I completed a directed research project. So I worked closely with 3 other students. One of them is a fellow Holy Cross student, and we completed a research on fish abundance in South Caicos. So we started with just kind of like we could come up with any question that we were interested in, and we designed the methods and we performed the research and did the analysis and wrote a paper and made a presentation. And so it was really awesome to get to go through the entire research project, where also the research was getting to go scuba diving and counting fish underwater. So it was a pretty awesome experience and definitely life-changing.
Sounds great. Caitlin, I'd love to hear a bit about your experience with the Washington, D.C. semester.
Sure. So I went to Washington, D.C. in the fall of 2020, or in the fall of 2019. Oh my gosh. So last fall, I was studying in D.C. with 19 other Holy Cross students. And what differentiates DC from our traditional study abroad programs is that rather than taking a full class load, you are instead interning full time, taking one class and then finishing a thesis of independent research. So I spent an internship. I was interning 4 days a week when I was in DC. So I was living the 9 to 5 life every day. And then I had class 1 night a week, and then I spent the rest of my week working on my thesis. So having that experience was so beneficial for me, getting to really integrate myself into the workforce, really like learning what it's like to work 9 to 5 every day. And so for me, that was such an amazing experience. And then getting to take on like a major research component. So writing that thesis throughout the semester was such a good experience. And then since then, applying to other internships and applying to jobs, they're always really interested in what I did in DC, always very interested in my thesis, and always very appreciative that my college has allowed me to take that time to have that kind of work and hands-on experience that not a lot of other students get to have in their undergrad. So I'm really thankful for that, and it's definitely really helped me thus far, like looking at other internships and job opportunities now that I'm a senior.
Dean Cass, we have some questions related to athletics and how a student athletic commitment might impact a student's ability to participate in internships.
Yeah, it's certainly true. The Washington semester and the New York semester are very difficult to do with full-time varsity athletics. But we do work very closely with the athletic departments to try to get internships for students over the summer, so that they can have those opportunities during the summer. Even while they're working out on campus, we find local partners. We've had students intern with the Red Sox, with the Celtics. We've had students who've interned locally with the professional hockey team that we have in Worcester. So there are lots of opportunities even on that side, in addition to things like Worcester Public Health and some of the law firms and things like that. So we do work very closely with the coaches to try to find ways to connect student athletes with opportunities, even if some of the ones during the academic year are more challenging. I will say academic internships are possible during the semester, and we do work with athletes on that, particularly during the off seasons. So there are opportunities. We can certainly find something for you.
Excellent. Lauren, a slightly different topic related to experiential learning is community-based learning opportunities, which I know you've participated in. Can you speak about that a bit?
Yeah, so during my first year seminar, my Montserrat, I had a community-based learning or CBL component. And so for my CBL site, I went to an after-school tutoring program called ACE, which stands for African Community Education, which served African refugees in the Worcester area. And so what was really important about CBL is it gave me the opportunity to take what I was learning in the classroom and connect it with what I was doing in person with these students in Worcester. And so I think about 2 weeks, we would have a reflection with a CBL intern who would lead us in really thinking through what it means to be working in the community and what kinds of things we were able to learn from it. And so it was a really great way to expand my time in the classroom to the greater Worcester community and to a more hands-on personal experience.
And a follow-up on a different note for you, Lauren, and Jordana, you can jump in as well. Students are wondering how many students are in a particular study abroad program together. So how are you with other Holy Cross students when you're studying abroad, and how many?
Yeah, so my program was pretty unique because it's not a very traditional study abroad. So I was with 27 other students from all over the US, and one of them was also from Holy Cross. So there were 2 of us, but they were also Holy Cross students at other School for Field Studies sites all over the world. So my friend was in Tanzania and another one was in Panama. So there were only a few on my direct program.
Yeah, and then for the University of Oxford, it's composed of different colleges. So Holy Cross students attend 2 different colleges at Oxford. I was at St. Edmund Hall with 2 other Holy Cross students, and then at Mansfield College, there were 3 other Holy Cross students. It actually kind of worked out really nice because our accommodations were right next to each other. But then there's also an overarching visiting student program at the University of Oxford for so a lot of American students from other universities were there as well.
Great. Well, I know you participated in the DC program. Is that the internship program in Washington, DC? Is that something that in your experience, keeps students from being able to study abroad because of their participation in that program?
No, I would say definitely not. In my experience, I knew going in, I always had the desire to do a semester on campus and then a semester in DC. But I have a lot of friends that paired their semester in DC with a semester abroad. And we have a lot of folks, both in the Office of Study Abroad and advisors, that can help you figure out how all the different puzzle pieces fit. Jordana talks about the full year study abroad experience, which Holy Cross is really good at emphasizing that. But for students who want to do a program like DC, you still have that alternative of just taking one semester and then going down to DC and enjoying the couple months that you get in that program as well.
Great, thank you. Caitlin, there's a question for you about how early you had to begin working with your advisor to plan your class schedule around the Washington semester.
Sure. Yes, I just saw that. So thank you, Grace, for your question. For me, my situation was a little bit unique. I actually came to Holy Cross with the intent of doing the DC program. So I started out really on with my very first advisor my first year, and I said, this is something I really want to do. What is the best way for me to prepare to get there? And so I'm a double major at the college, so I have obviously additional major components and things that I needed to get through. So I probably sat down with my advisor in a very concrete way my sophomore year and really planned out the courses that I had taken, the credits that my GC semester were going to fulfill for my political science major, which is the major I wrote my thesis in, and then planning out my courses in the future. So I started probably a year before going to DC, but students have spent more or less time than that. Just working with your advisor will be super helpful. They will be really, really great in helping you plan out, no matter if you have 2 majors, if you have a minor, if you are an athlete, if you have any kind of thing going on, both your advisor and the Office of Study Abroad and then the JD Power Center are all very, very helpful in making sure that you can have that DC experience without kind of worrying about finishing your major or anything like that.
And Caitlin, remind us what your 2 majors are.
Sure. So I'm a political science and economics double major. I have a concentration in peace and conflict studies, and I'm on the pre-law track.
Michaela, can you share, I know you're part of the PreBusiness program, and next week's webinar is dedicated to talking about our pre-professional programs, but I'd love to hear a bit about your experience with the PreBusiness program, particularly how internships factor into the program.
Yeah, of course. So in addition to doing the pre-business program, which isn't necessarily a major or minor, it's just a track. And so there's not necessarily any required classes for that, rather, I guess, conferences and different online courses you have to take. So for example, the month of November, I'm going to be learning all about how to use Excel. One of the things that I really got from the pre-business program, which was like super beneficial, was the Full Bridge program, which I did at the end of summer 2019. And so we worked in groups and we got coached by business professionals that have been very successful in their fields and on the different branches of business. So one week was finance, another week was marketing, another week was just basic public speaking and analyzing the stock market. And so I worked with my team and we actually found a failing business. So we chose Crocs and we basically analyzed their stocks and we thought of a creative way to help improve their business. And then we presented it at the end of our week-long, I guess, experience. And so it was really interesting to get the hands-on like experience from business professionals that have been successful in their fields, as well as analyzing things that I wouldn't necessarily get in classes, such as like the stock market and just basic public speaking skills. And so that was really beneficial for the pre-business requirement. And then in addition, I'm doing the business ethics and society minor. My first year it's offered, so anyone after me will be more than welcome to do that. It's actually run out of the philosophy department. And so with that minor, you do have certain class requirements like accounting, economics, a political philosophy kind of class. And then senior year, you're expected to do an internship this summer going into your senior year. And then senior year, you basically will write a capstone analyzing the business and like the more ethical side of it and what you found when you were interning at that business. So that's what I've basically been preparing for with my more laid back summer just due to COVID-19 and such. But it's really exciting, and it's a great way to like have access to the business world while attending a liberal arts college and not doing necessarily like a business major or minor.
Thanks so much. There's a lot of interest in the DC semester program. So Willem, I'll come back to you with a question about, do you need to be a political science major to participate? And what was your experience in terms of the students you spent the semester with?
So political science obviously has a strong correlation to the kind of work that a lot of folks do in the DC semester, but it is in no way a requirement. In my roommates in DC, we had history major, economics major, so a really rich variety of backgrounds represented down there. And I think that makes the program a lot stronger. Caitlin mentioned the independent research, the theses is a huge part of the program. And talking to the other 20 students in the program about, what are you researching? What are you looking into? Such a diverse patchwork of approaches to all kinds of problems that people had. And internships reflect the same, that all of the different experiences people created for themselves reflect that they're studying all kinds of different things back at Holy Cross. And yeah, of course, you would think political science lines up very closely with DC, but the fact of the matter is that the experience is exactly what you want to make it.
Lauren, coming to you, can you talk a bit about sort of the structure and the requirements for the summer research program? Lauren Dettinger.
Sorry, my computer was frozen. So I haven't participated in the research this summer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that that's my mistake. Wasn't there a slide with your research? Did I miss?
That was my internship.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the internship program.
That's okay.
Well, Cass, can you just talk a bit about the requirements for students to participate in the Weiss Summer Research Program?
Do you want me to take that one, Lynn?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so the Summer Research Program is an interesting opportunity for students and faculty to propose projects together. So typically students and faculty consult, try to find something that's interesting to work together on, and then propose it for funding over the summer. It varies a little bit. So in the sciences, students tend to work with faculty in their labs. So you're largely working on research projects that the faculty are pursuing, and you sort of take a piece of it to work with. In the social sciences and the humanities, oftentimes the projects are actually student-driven. Things that students are interested in that are consulting with faculty, then that work together to propose it, get it funded. Students come to campus in a normal year, come to campus and they'll spend the June and July on campus, work with the faculty member, and at the end you make a public presentation of the research that you've done. In many cases, you may actually be able to publish some of your research with your faculty member. That's fairly common as well. So there's lots of opportunities there. Like I say, in a typical year, 100 to 110 students will typically do summer research at Holy Cross.
Thanks so much. Jordana, I know you had your own research experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so at Holy Cross, I've kind of had two research experiences. I'll talk about my broad experience first. So I'm writing a senior thesis, history thesis on Islam, laïcité, and the French Republic. So laïcité is the French Republic's notion of secularism. And so I was able to meet with Professor Robert Gildia, who works at a college at the University of Oxford, who's the leading French historian in modern French history. So I was able to meet with him once a week to go over different sources and just start planning out my senior thesis so that my senior year would be a little bit easier than I was expecting or thought going into it. And then my second experience with research was actually my sophomore year. I had written a paper in my Montserrat class on biracial identities in the United States. And I was able, through the Ignite Fund, to present that research at a conference at the University of Notre Dame. So through applying through that fund, through the Ignite Fund, I was able to go and fly out to Indiana free of charge.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have other students had the experience of publishing or presenting at conferences, or I know travel is a little bit dicey these days, but have other students had that experience?
I haven't traveled anywhere to present, but I have presented at many conferences at Holy Cross. So after my first and second year, I did research at a lab that is close to my home in Albany. And so I was able to present the research that I completed there at our summer research symposium in the fall, which was a really great way to get to tell other students and faculty at Holy Cross about my research. I was also given the opportunity to present about my research that I did abroad at our academic conference in the spring. So there's lots of opportunities at Holy Cross to practice presenting and giving you that conference feel.
Another thing I wanted to note is just that if you're a psych major, there's actually a requirement research component with the major. And so the spring of your sophomore year, you will be taking a research methods class, since that really does encapsulate what a psych major does, like what psychologists and psychiatrists do and such. And so basically you spend the entire semester in that class working on a project with you and your students, and basically going out into the Holy Cross community and getting your sample. And so for my project, my group members and I analyzed the bias, reliability, and influence on teacher evaluation sites, and more specifically, Rate My Professor. And we basically concluded that it is highly biased and not necessarily as reliable as the evaluations that we have to take at the end of our semester. And so it was a really wonderful experience. I worked very closely with my professor, just absolutely perfecting our extremely large research document at the end of the semester. And then unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity, but there is a research colloquium at the end of the spring semester where all the psych research methods classes will come and present their work. And so that's just something that all psychology majors do. And so you automatically get that research experience with a faculty as part of your curriculum.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for adding that in. Caitlin, I want to give you a chance to brag a little bit about the trial teams. Tell us some latest news.
Thank you. So I am currently the president of our mediation team at Holy Cross, which is a dispute resolution team. We do mock style mediations with teams from across the country and also across the world. So this past summer, I was on the team with 2 other Holy Cross students that competed at the first online international tournament for mediation. So transitioning to tournament styles throughout COVID, we participated in a tournament in Vilnius, Lithuania. So it was a really amazing experience. We were one of 3 teams from the US with several teams from across the world. And my team did come in first in the tournament. So it was a really, really good experience for us. And we were so happy, especially because the tournament was based mainly out of law schools. So we were obviously first, we were one of the only teams from the US, but we were also one of the only undergraduate teams. So traditionally our trial teams do really, really well. Our mediation team has had a lot of success. Our mock trial team has had a lot of success. I know Willem is involved with Moot Court. They've had a lot of success. I know, I think they had a tournament this morning actually that I saw. So we're always doing things, and especially even throughout COVID, all the teams have really made a big push to transition to competing even in the online world. And it's definitely doable. It's been really, really enjoyable for all of us.
Excellent. Students, raise your hand if you entered Holy Cross undeclared. So there's a question about that. So all students come to Holy Cross undeclared, and it's worked out for all of them, I would say. Lauren, I know you participated in the alumni job shadowing program. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, the alumni job shadowing is a great opportunity that's run through our Center for Career Development, and it's something that students can participate from the moment they arrive on campus. They usually occur during breaks, so our fall break, our winter break, or over the summer. And so over the summer, after my first year, I shadowed a pediatrician. And so I got to spend, she's a Holy Cross alum, and I got to spend the day with her, seeing patients and seeing what it was like for her working as a pediatrician. And so it's a really cool program where you get a, you say like where you're from and what jobs you're interested in, and you get matched with an alumni and get the opportunity to really get an experience to see what it's like doing these different careers.
Thank you, Lauren. Related to that question, I'm curious for all of the students, how your internship and or research opportunities have sort of changed your direction or shaped your direction or helped you with sort of that discernment. Has it given you new interests, new skills, new professional connections? What is sort of the takeaway in terms of helping you on your path?
I can go ahead and start. So when I was in Washington, D.C., I worked at a major think tank. I worked at the Heritage Foundation. And so I made so many professional networking connections when I was there that I was always asking for advice from my bosses and from my colleagues about what was a logical next step for me with internships, looking for a career in a think tank because I live in the Massachusetts area. It wasn't feasible for me to spend the summer in DC because it's just too much for me to move down there. So I was looking always for internships up in Massachusetts. And so having all of those professional connections, I was actually able to get an internship here in Massachusetts at a think tank. So doing what I was really, really interested in because of my connections that I made in DC. And so having those networking connections that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to make without that kind of program have been so helpful to me in both getting my summer internship, and I am actually continuing my internship right now. So I'm staying with my summer internship, and I am now tentatively going to stay with them after graduation. So having that kind of opportunity to connect with all kinds of people in DC was so helpful in making sure that I was on the right track for the rest of my time at Holy Cross and after graduation.
I can go next. So I came into Holy Cross knowing that I was interested in biology and wanted to do something in the medical healthcare field, but I didn't really necessarily know what. And so I started working in a public health lab with the New York State Department of Health and really fell in love with public health. And then I was really excited at the opportunity to get to work with the CDC, which is a different aspect of public health. So instead of working in a lab, I'm working with epidemiologists. And it really has shown me that I have a big passion for public health, and it's definitely completely altered what I plan to do after graduation. I really hope to pursue a joint degree in an MD and a Master's of Public Health. So it had like a crazy impact on what I hope to do in my future.
I can jump in as well. So for research, my research experience has made me realize that that's what I want to do after graduation, is pursue a master's degree, but also just more generally to be a lifelong learner and to continue reading about new subjects and figuring out where my voice fits in with them. Then with my research experience or my internship experience, the Center for Career Development helped me find an internship at a boarding school over the summer for the past 2 summers. And so I realized that that's another avenue that I'd be interested in.
And I'll echo everything that everyone else has said. I showed up at Holy Cross not really knowing which direction I wanted to go. And I really found that as we sit here and name all of these different programs and opportunities that we have to remember that Holy Cross is such a small school, and these resources are really focused on a small number of students. And because of that, really found that one opportunity often leads to another. And I signed up for Moot Court on a whim as a freshman, and that led me to the Weiss Summer Research Program after the conclusion of my first year. And that experience then led me to an internship last summer. So you really do find that all of these experiences overlap, and going in as a first year student and not having any idea which direction to go, it all leads you down the path to doing the work that you're most passionate about by the time you're in the position that we are as seniors.
And I just want to, since I'm not a senior and I haven't had the opportunity to an internship, unfortunately, but I think going off of what Will said, it's to have at Holy Cross, I feel that will really shape the direction that you want to go in. And so going back to when I was talking about my full bridge program, each day we focused on a different branch of business. So one day was sales, one day was marketing, another day was finance. And so by having those different experiences to the business world, I was able to find which one was really interesting to me, which was marketing. And so that helped me when I went to the career development center to focus my attention on different internships that would suit my strengths and what my major is like it's teaching me and all the experience I've had at Holy Cross. And so I'm really excited to see if I fall in love with marketing and the opportunity to just try different things.
Thank you all so much. Dean Cass, there are some questions about the New York internship semester, which I know is a very similar model to the Washington program, but can you just speak to that a little bit?
Sure. New York is actually one of our newer programs. We've been running it now 4 years. We send roughly 12 to 16 students to DC, to New York. It depends on the year. New York is focused a little differently. It's the internships there have tended to be in a wide range of things. The arts. We've had folks in media, particularly we've had internships at CNN and NBC, newspapers. We've had some in finance. So it's a slightly different focus than what you find in Washington. So in New York, the course that you take is actually on leadership and on organizational structures and understanding the structure of different types of corporations, how they're built, how they run. So the focus is a little different there. It's also very heavily focused on alumni relationships. So we have alumni coming in every week to talk about their experience in New York and to introduce students to different opportunities in New York. So it's an internship opportunity, but it's actually much broader than that, much more interesting, and it encompasses a wide range of different topics. So if you come to Holy Cross and you're interested in the arts, we can get you an internship in the arts there. If you want to do something in media, we have opportunities there. So there's lots of great opportunities in New York right now.
Excellent, thanks so much. I want to close out by asking all of the students one final question. One of the great things about Holy Cross is our undergraduate focus and the ability to form relationships with faculty members. And I know oftentimes faculty members are a huge part of an internship or particularly a research experience. And I'd love to hear from each of you a great experience you've had with a professor or professor you just really have connected with, or someone you just really enjoy. So we'll close it out with that. Michaela, why don't you go first?
Okay. My absolute favorite professor was Professor Kendi Hess in the philosophy department. So she isn't even in my major department. I took a class with her. It was called Capitalism in Context. And it was just basically analyzing the ups and downs of capitalism, the goods and the bads, and how that connects to businesses. And she was the one who actually inspired me to start this new business ethics and society minor. Like I said before, it is brand new. And so she told me about it before it was even on the Holy Cross page. And so she was just like the coolest professor I've ever had. And she's been such an inspiration, and she's been a role model for me. So I'm really, really excited to continue working with her my senior year when I'm putting together my capstone after my internship. And that just shows that it's not necessarily the professors in your majors or in your interests. It's just you have the opportunity to take classes from all different departments, and it's just great to meet these different professors with different interests and backgrounds as you. And so, yeah, she's my favorite person ever.
I can follow. So I would say my favorite professor at Holy Cross has been Professor Burnett in the political science department. So I took my first class with Professor Burnett my first semester of my first year. So my first introduction to Holy Cross was in one of his classes where I took Intro to American Government. And I just loved the class. He always kept it engaging. It was a mix of discussion and lecture. One of my favorite things was on Fridays, we would always talk about current events. So just kind of like keep the class relevant to what was going on in the world. And after that, I just really relied on him. He wasn't my advisor in political science, but I did utilize him as a really big resource. He was so helpful and helping me with my application for the DC program, and always offering to read over my essays and things like that. And even when I was down in DC, I had a lot of opportunities down there that I always wanted to discuss with him. And so he was always really helpful even when I was down there. And we're coming full circle. I am now junior in class with him right now, so during my senior year. So he has always just been a really good resource for me, both inside and outside the classroom. So a really good example of how you can rely on professors, just no matter whether you're in the classroom with them or not. I've always kept in close contact with him. So I would say he's definitely my favorite.
I can go next. My favorite professor, there's definitely a few of them, but my first year seminar Montserrat professor, Virginia Ryan, was one of the most influential teachers I've ever had in my entire life. My class was focused on social justice, and she really instilled in me a desire to help all groups, regardless of who they are. And she has written me so many letters of recommendation, and I have meetings with her at least once or twice a semester just to kind of catch up on what I've been up to. And it's the kind of thing where even though I only had her for my first year, she still is always, when we're on campus, I always run into her, and I always end up talking to her for too long. But she's just been such a support through everything that I've done. And she really instilled my desire to be a crusader for social justice.
I can go next. I think this is honestly one of the hardest questions I've been asked, because I've loved every single professor I've had, and they've all kind of changed my life. But if I had to choose, it would be Professor Contreras from the political science department. He was my Montserrat professor, and he was a phenomenal person for a first-year college student in helping us to utilize our voices. I believe we already have our voices, but to help us kind of hone in on what we think is valuable. And what was incredible about this class was it was about race, science, and human classification, and then it transitioned into group identity politics. So in the classroom, we were talking about race, and more specifically racism in the United States, and to deal with these very complex and emotional topics as first-year college students, and to do so in an environment that we felt safe enough to discuss our views, but also recognizing to be respectful always, was a phenomenal skill set that I learned that I'll take with me forever.
All right, and that leaves me. I totally agree with Jordana. This is a really tough question to answer. But I would have to bring up Professor Heinemann in the political science department. He's someone that has really showed me a lot of really exciting topics in political science that I had been familiar with before, but I've really channeled a lot of my passions in working with him. He also works very closely with our Moot Court team. He kind of assistant coaches us at times. He'll pop into our Zoom meetings after having been in Zoom class all day, and he still finds time to help us hone our arguments. And as someone who has a PhD in con law, he knows a lot more than those of us on the team, as we're kind of interfacing with constitutional law for the first time. And I've had a close relationship with him for 3 years now, and I'm actually this semester taking his course with him for the first time. Really shows that you don't have to be in a professor's class in order to reach out to them and establish a relationship with them. Their doors always open, and a lot of times you'll find these relationships happen very easily.
Thank you so much. So with that, we're going to call it a night. I want to offer an enormous thank you to all of our panelists for their participation tonight. And of course, to all of our attendees for your questions and your attention. You can find contact information for everyone on this webinar on our website, and we hope this will be the start of a conversation, so don't hesitate to reach out at any time. We hope you have a wonderful week. Please stay safe and stay in touch.